So today we are playing Delta V Rings of Saturn, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a really good game. This game is exactly the reason why I started this channel to begin with. I love these sort of complex, realistic space sims, and I love these hidden gem indie games that are, you know, even though this is an early access, even though it doesn't, I don't think I've seen it on the top sellers lists, don't let that fool you. This is a really good game. And if you're into things like objects in space, astronauts, even Kerbal Space Program, Tin Can, a lot of these other games that I've covered on the channel, you will definitely like this as well. So basically we have this ship of ours, and we've just been inserted just outside the rings of Saturn, and which is what the whole game is basically about. And we're just going to do a little bit of jury rigging here. I'll explain later exactly what this does, but what you need to know for now is, so I've been playing for a little bit, I've damaged my ship, and there are some parts that I've just fixed up, but I haven't replaced them. So that means that they're not completely back to 100%. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plot a course to a beacon that I threw further into the rings of Saturn, and we're just going to go and see what's around there. But basically what this is, so it's a lot of the game is around mining, and if you think that is potentially boring, don't let that throw you off, because this is actually one of very few, or maybe one of the only space sims that I've ever seen make something like mining asteroids really interesting and exciting. And one of the reasons why it's interesting and exciting is because the game is quite challenging. The realistic damage is simulated, so if you're going at a high rate of speed and you slam into an asteroid or something, I'm just going to switch the autopilot off here and do manual control, then that will do significant damage to your ship. In fact, if you have a big enough collision, that can sort of end your run right there. And it's also, each component is simulated. So if you look at the top right here, you have, let me just see what's going on. Are you to challenge Pure Thunder for a race? I've never seen this before. I guess, let's see. What are our options? Bring it on. What are you flying? A race. Let's say. Why not? I haven't seen this before, but let's just try this. Oh, no way. I don't have that much money to spare. So, okay, yeah, so I don't really have the option of racing this person. Well, that's really expensive. 250,000, you know, whatever credits you have in this game is actually quite a lot. So, yeah, we're just going to go out of this window. And, yeah, let's just have a quick look around. So, I did drop a beacon here that allowed me to get here. And apparently if you drop beacons, that makes you more likely to have an encounter. I think that might have been my previous beacon, but we're going to drop another one as we get into this. In fact, I'm just going to drop it right here because it makes the beacon weighs quite a bit and makes my ship a little bit lopsided. So let's have a look at this asteroid. Yeah, we might as well start taking this apart with our mass driver. So the reason why you're not hearing the asteroid explode is because everything from the visuals to the sound to the physics in this game is meant to be reasonably accurate simulation, and that's why you can only hear things that you would be able to hear inside the spaceship. And the other thing that's quite interesting is that this is actually, I guess you can say, a first-person game. I know it looks like it's third-person, but in reality, there's a drone that's following your ship around. So at least that's sort of the lore behind it, but you can actually upgrade the drone, and that's one of the reasons why I have this view, which is helping me sort of see where the big asteroids are and the big masses are, because this is an upgraded drone that I installed. There's quite a valuable cluster of minerals over there, so I'm just going to make my way over there and try to capture that before we go back to taking this asteroid apart. So this is a big part of the game, is basically mining these asteroids and collecting minerals. But as I said, because each one, especially if you're trying to do it fast, carries a little bit of risk, it is actually quite exciting. And then there are other encounters. There's always the risk that you're going to encounter a pirate or something like that. And especially initially, as you're diving into the rings of Saturn, if you want to travel at any reasonable amount of speed, there's always a risk that you're gonna crash into something. So all of this propellant and the mass driver ammo that I'm using here, I actually do need to replace that once I go on my next dive, and you do need to pay for that. But I mean, it's not particularly expensive, and if you're bringing back minerals, you can easily cover that cost. The biggest issue is usually damage to your ship. I mean, that can become a big problem pretty fast. Let's just have a look. The reason why I'm able to see the value of each of these is because I've hired a geologist for the ship, and the geologist can basically help me to estimate what the value of any mineral is that I can see floating around here. So let's capture a little bit more. So I'm using the autopilot to match the velocity, and then I can also adjust the autopilot to sort of make me close in on these items. This one does seem to be headed for that asteroid, which is something that we need to be a little bit careful of. So see, we're sort of matching, what's down here? Oh, it's just basically showing that big asteroid as well. So I'll just quickly show you how it works. So that's basically how the mining works. There's lots of different ways that you can mine depending on the upgrades that you have on your ship. The interesting thing is as well, you'll see that my reactor temperature goes down as I blow sort of propellant out of the back of the ship. This glowing thing at the end, let me just zoom a little bit. So that is my reactor. And basically, if you were to ever run out of all of your propellant, then the reactor would overheat and your ship would explode. So that's just something to keep in mind, and that's something that can happen because if you slam into something fast enough, that can cause enough damage that your ship will basically potentially spin out of control or potentially explode if you lose all of the propellant due to the propellant leak that you have. And the screen that I was showing earlier on, what this is basically jury rigging. So this is sort of temporary fixes that you can do if something's damaged, just to help you continue on your current dive, or just to make your way back to the base where you can then do some repairs. The other thing is that I quite like about this game, and I mentioned this, if you look up here at the visual feed, this is basically, I think maybe from the station or somewhere where they have a visual feed, and if I thrust like this, you'll see it creates these little sort of sparks. Once it zooms in a bit, you'll be able to see it. Not sparks, I don't know if that's the right. You can just see these flashes of lights, and there's a little bit of delay, of course, because you're quite a ways away from there. But it's those little details that I really appreciate about this game. And by the way, I am busy putting together a list of tips and tricks, and I'll be creating a video on that as well. So if you want to pick this up, first of all, like I said, if you like these sorts of games, whatever, you know, astronauts, objects in space, all of these sort of technical space games, I'm pretty sure you're going to like this as well. It is worth picking up. It's not very expensive, even at the full price. So I think this is one where it is still in early access. I assume it will still be for some time, but there's already a lot here. And, you know, whether you want to sort of explore or just relax, and it's quite a relaxing game to play, actually. I mean, it can be tense in moments, but there's a lot of like this where we're just sort of traveling through the rings of Saturn. It's just a really nice game to play. Oh shit, okay, you're gonna see a collision here. So basically, okay, we have a big problem. I don't think I can come back from this. I think this is it for us. We are leaking propellant extremely fast at an alarming rate. Let's just have a look here. There's nothing I can do about the reactor leak. I can sort out this misalignment and this misalignment over here. Maybe this one as well. But the question is, are we able to get enough stability to plot a course back? Our autopilot's going to try to sort that out. Now we need to be fairly stable for us to do the trajectory calculation. And I think we're actually going to be able to pull this off before the propellant runs out. But if we are, it's going to be just in time. So you can see the propellant running out over here. I can't believe we actually made it through this. And I have a feeling that this run, I'm probably going to make a loss. I would have probably been better off to just let the ship explode, because you can basically reload from the last time you were in the station. But I'm glad we're back here, because I want to show off a couple of features here as well. And then we'll probably end the video there. But yeah, I've got a couple of minerals. You can hang on to this. The price of minerals fluctuate, but I'm just going to sell it for now. So we'll just go ahead and sell this, and then I'll kind of run you through everything you can do here. So we've got the mineral market, and this will show you what the prices have been over time. And this is where you can decide if you want to hang on to stuff. It's also useful to have a look at this just to figure out what different minerals that you can mine are worth. And before you have a geologist, because you don't know, that'll give you a pretty good idea of which ones you should be going after. Even once you have the geologist, you can see I've got sort of a system in the ship now that allows me to see what's in asteroids. So you can sort of see what's in the asteroids and which ones are worth breaking apart. Then you have the repairs. So the way this works is, now what's important here is how much it costs to fix or replace something and the amount of time that it takes. Now, the two benefits to replacing something is that it'll fix it to 100% and it'll take less time, but it's quite expensive. And especially sort of where I'm at in the game, I find that mostly it's not worth it. So I'm going to spend the time. The biggest downside that I can see from spending the time is that I have hired 4 people for my ship. You start out with nobody. You don't need to have crew on your ship, but I have to pay them a salary every month. So this basically puts me a lot closer as I'm advancing the time to having to pay those salaries. But I'm going to fix this. I think this is probably, no, we'll fix it sort of all the way. So we're fixing all the thrusters, spending quite a bit of time on this. I'll leave this one, that last, we might as well do it, okay. And this one's also pretty badly damaged. Once you've fixed it, it's actually quite a bit cheaper to just replace it. Then there's the onboard computer, we'll fix that as well. Nuclear reactor, this is extremely expensive and time consuming, so it takes 48 hours for each fix that we're doing and about 5,000 whatever the credits is that you have in the game. So, but it's also one of the most important things to fix, because we're going to do one more here, up to 91%. Because, yeah, if you have issues with the nuclear reactor, that's some of the biggest issues you can have. You can do a bit of tuning on the ship as well. For example, you can set the temperature that the nuclear reactor runs at, and you'll see here, so it says that a higher, actually no, this is the mass flow. Let's see if there's a tooltip for this. No, okay, there isn't. But basically, if you have a higher temperature, that means you're going to be able to thrust for longer before the nuclear reactor runs too cool, and I guess your ship shuts down and it's just going to be shut down for a little bit before it starts back up. But then of course it's running hotter, so that comes with some disadvantages as well. And still a lot for me to figure out about this game as well. Then you have the upgrade, so there's quite a lot here that you can play around with. So of course I put this beacon on as one of the upgrades that I had. Let me look at some of the other stuff that I've done. Actually, if you do start playing out this game, and this is going to be one of my first tips, the first thing that you want to do is upgrade from the standard cargo bay to this one with the baffles, because if you don't do that, your cargo, if you open your cargo bay and you decelerate, everything that you've mined in that run will just shoot out of your ship, and that can be pretty frustrating. So this is actually fairly cheap. It's the first thing that you should get in the game. You can upgrade, like I said, the autopilot, the recon drone that's following you around. So I have an upgrade on this one. There are different heads-up displays as well, so you'll see that the one that I'm using is actually the standard one, and you can simulate everything here to see what it looks like. I actually quite like this look, but there are a couple of different ones. So there's this one, for example. There's another more sort of old-fashioned one. So if you like one of the other ones, I think there are some benefits to sort of the information that it displays as well, but as I said, I quite like the initial one that they give you. And then you have the dealer, so this is where you can buy different ships. So these are quite expensive to do upgrades. I see some of these are in the millions, some of them are a little bit less expensive, but once you're deeper into the Rings of Saturn, from what I can see, you can make a lot more money. There are some upgrades that you can do that allows you to mine stuff faster, and apparently you can also go and salvage ships. So for example, pirate ships, or maybe just abandoned ships that you can find. I haven't started doing that yet, but apparently that is quite lucrative and will probably put you a little bit closer to buying one of these other ships. I find that the pacing in the game so far is pretty reasonable. I mean, I haven't been playing, I think I've been playing for maybe 4 or 5 hours in total at this point, and you know, I've been able to achieve quite a bit in that time. So there's a lot to do, but it's reasonable. Like, I've never really felt bored playing this. And let's just have a look at what else we've got. So there's the crew. They do level up, and one of them I think actually asked me for a raise at some point. So I started out by just taking a very inexperienced crew because I just didn't have the money to pay them a lot more, because I wasn't bringing in a lot at the time. You can hire a lot more experienced people, but then, as I said, people will level up as you're playing with them and will become more experienced. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So then you have your logs in terms of, so we can sort of see the repairs and stuff that I've been doing, previous runs, and sort of what's happened on those runs. And then you can jump back into the ring dive. So this is where we can sort of position ourselves back towards that beacon that we've placed again, and you can set how much propellant. So we have to add propellants obviously for the next run, and the mass driver ammo. So there's a couple of things that you can adjust here as well. So because this is only a first impressions video, I'm going to end this here. I do think this is really good. Definitely check it out, wishlist it. As I said, it's probably worth buying even at the full price. So if you like some of these other space games that I have on the channel, you're probably going to like this as well. Do look out for my tips and tricks video, and if you'd like to see even more in this, let me know in the comments below. I know this is a little bit niche, so I'm not expecting that this is going to get a ton of attention. But as always, if you do like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next video.